Have you ever pretended you weren't home? Just so you didn't have to answer the door? Or felt stressed when someone called instead of just texting? Yes, same here. I'm a conductor, I'm an introvert, and I know I am not alone. This episode redefines what it means to be an introvert and the power of saying less. I am Kemal Oksal, professor at Berklee College of Music. For over 20 years, I've worked as a music producer, conductor, and educator, leading orchestras, producing albums, and mentoring young artists. Now, I invite you to discover the stories that shape what we hear. Each week, I open the words behind the music, and whether you are a musician or not, you are invited. So, let's get started. We often live in a world that applauds the loudest voice, the most visible spectacle. But in nature, there are forces that operate differently. Think of a whispering giant, not someone who shouts, but whose sheer presence is immense and whose quiet expressions carry profound weight and reach. Take elephants, for example. They communicate with deep, rumbling calls, sound waves too low for humans to hear, known as infrasound. Yet, these whispers travel for miles through the ground and air, allowing entire herds to coordinate across vast distances. Or whales, whose low-frequency songs resonate across entire oceans, guiding migrations and connections, almost unheard by us. These are true whispering giants, quiet in their delivery, but vast in their impact. Like introverts. They may not fill the room with noise, but their influence extends incredibly far, resonating deeply. And perhaps you, my friend, are one of these whispering giants. The idea of introversion isn't new. It was introduced over a century ago by the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung, the same Jung who helped to shape modern psychology. In 1921, Jung published Psychological Types. In it, he proposed that people experience the world in two fundamental ways. Some are external oriented, drawn to action, interaction, and stimulation, extroverts. Others are internal oriented, drawn to reflection, depth, and the inner world of thought, introverts. And importantly, introversion is not shyness. It is not social anxiety. It's about energy, how we gain it and how we lose it. Extroverts recharge through people, movement, and activity. Introverts recharge through calm, solitude, and deep focus. Jung himself, a classic introvert. He often retreated to his lakeside house in Bollingen, where he built a stone tower by hand and spent days alone, reading, writing, and thinking. He believed solitude wasn't just healthy, it was necessary for creativity and insight. This idea of quiet depth challenges our usual perceptions, especially when we think of leadership. We tend to imagine leaders as bold, charismatic, outspoken, always the loudest voice in the room. Yet, many of history's most powerful voices came from people who preferred the quiet corners. Albert Einstein. He disliked crowds, yet reshaped how we understand the universe. He also played the violin, not to perform, but to think. Audrey Hepburn. Private and soft-spoken. Barack Obama. Yes, even the President of the United States. His staff called him a listener first. And then there is Marlon Brando, one of the most iconic actors of all time and also one of the most introverted. He was famously private. If you want to understand that side of him, watch the documentary Listen to Me, Marlon, directed by Stephen Riley. It uses Brando's own private recordings, his voice, to tell his story from the inside out. It is haunting, it is honest, and deeply introverted. In music, Glenn Gould, acclaimed pianist, stopped performing in public in his 30s. Concerts overwhelmed him. He preferred the solitude of the studio. If you are interested to learn more about Glenn Gould, There is a beautiful film I recommend too. 32 short films about Glenn Gould, directed by Francois Girard. And of course, Carlos Kleiber. The Austrian conductor, so electrifying that musicians study his recordings like sacred texts, a genius known for his mystifying disappearances from the stage. So private, he gave fewer interviews than a ghost. Kleiber conducted rarely, gave almost no interviews, yet he's a legend. He didn't chase fame, he avoided it. He conducted fewer than 100 concerts in his entire life. Compare that to Karajan's 3000. Yet, his legacy shines brighter than most. In 1989, when Karajan resigned from the Berlin Philharmonic, they asked Kleiber to take over. He said no. To most conductors, that would have been a dream. To Kleiber, a burden. He didn't want a title, he wanted freedom. Most of what we know about Kleiber comes from a book, Corresponding with Carlos, written by Charles Barber, who exchanged handwritten letters with him for over a decade. It's not just a biography, it is a portrait of two introverts navigating connection one sentence at a time. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, my college professor was visiting Vancouver. He reached out to Charles Barber, who at the time was the City Opera Vancouver's artistic director, and invited him for a lunch. What he got back was possibly the most introverted and honest email I've ever heard. Barber replied, "I don't eat lunch with people I don't know, I am sorry." Now that might sound cold, but to me it is brilliant. That's the kind of honesty only introverts can truly appreciate. We've all wanted to say that, but Barber actually did. Kleiber was the same. He cancelled concerts that didn't feel right. He disappeared for years, not out of arrogance, but sensitivity. But when he prepared, he prepared. He pre-marked parts for every musician and left poetic notes. Sometimes, instead of crescendo, his note would say, "like a leaf trembling before falling." Because to him, music wasn't math, it was metaphor. And even after concerts ended, musicians would find more of his notes quietly left behind. Whispers of intention, meant for one moment, one person, one phrase. Barber's letters reveal a man who lived more in sound than in speech. Reading Corresponding with Carlos felt like reading a conversation I didn't know I needed. It helped me realize that you don't have to be loud to lead. You just have to mean what you say and listen like it matters. These aren't exceptions, they are reminders. Being quiet doesn't mean being small. It means listening, observing, and waiting until your voice truly matters. There is a myth that great leaders must be loud, always on, and always visible. But research shows otherwise. Professor Adam Grant from Wharton School discovered something surprising. When teams are full of proactive people, introverted leaders outperform extroverted ones. Why? Because they listen. They don't compete with ideas. They make space for them. Also, according to the writer Susan Cain, there is zero correlation between being the best talker and having the best ideas. In music, this resonates. Because great conductors don't just speak, they respond. They don't dominate, they shape. For a long time, I didn't know I was an introvert. I just thought I was tired. Tired after rehearsals, drained after social events, always needing alone time and not knowing why. I thought something was wrong with me. Then one day I learned the word introvert and everything clicked. And if you're wondering how an introvert is doing this, a YouTube channel, remember, this camera isn't a crowd. It is quiet. It gives me space and control. It reminds me of Glenn Gould. He left the stage not because he didn't love music, but because he needed a quieter way to share it. In solitude, he reached millions. And for me, this studio, this space is where introversion becomes creation.
Many artists, musicians, deep thinkers are introverts. It makes sense because art isn't small talk, it is connection. And leadership, the kind that lasts, doesn't always shout. Sometimes it listens. If this feels familiar, maybe it is time to learn more about yourself. There is a website that I recommend, 16personalities.com. It is based on Carl Jung's theories, later expanded by Catherine and Isabel Briggs into the MBTI, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. It sorts people into 16 personality types using 4 core dimensions. Where do you focus your energy? How do you gather information? How do you make decisions? And how do you prefer to live, structured or flexible? I took the test myself. Turns out, I am an architect personality with a 95% of introversion. And honestly, that explained a lot. Give it a try, not to label yourself, but to understand your energy a little better. I read the comments and I am always curious how others experience this. If you feel like sharing, I would love to hear that. I hope that by now you understand that your quietness isn't a smallness. Instead, it's a profound source of strength. It is your inner whispering giant. See you on the next one.